message from John chapter 15, verse 11. I have told you these things so that my joy may be in you and your joy may be complete. But I get ahead of myself. What would God look like? You ever thought what God would look like if God put on flesh and bones? I direct your attention to the side wall over there, who Reverend Chris calls our boy, Jesus. And he's not historically correct. We know that historians say that given the region he was born and raised, he'd have been of darker complexion and rougher features. And we probably don't even have the date right of his birth. There was some fiddling around with the calendar. Pagans did that, I hear. But I ask that you not consider the features of the man, but the message of the man. What would God look like if God put on flesh and bones? He's not doing this, is he? He's doing this. You, the kingdom of God, is within you. You remember the little boy in first grade who was invited to do an art project, to write on a t-shirt. What would Jesus' t-shirt say if Jesus wrote his own message on the t-shirt? And the little boy wrote, "I'm God and you're not." But that's not the message that Jesus gives us, is it? We can understand how that little boy, children take things literally. I think I've told you the story of when my daughter, at 5 years old, was present at the christening of her little brother. And the unity minister at that christening was borrowing from Khalil Gibran, the prophet, and said, "Your children are not your children. They are the sons and daughters of life's longing for itself." I saw big tears rolling down my daughter's eyes when I looked down, holding her brother, and looked down, and as soon as there was a break where I could, bend down and say, What's the matter? You're upset." She said, "She says we're not her children." So children do take things literally. But if we look at Jesus' message to us, we see that he felt that what God would look like if God put on flesh and bones was humanity. As Reverend Chris wrote in a newsletter, and I hope you get his newsletters, meditations, they're so wonderful. And if you get on the mailing list for Jubilee Pioneers, you'll get them. They uplift me every time I read them. And you have to forgive me, Reverend Chris, for mentioning, but I mean, it's appropriate, right? The Christ bearer. So as we celebrate the birthday, as we come along a week from today, celebrating the birthday of the Christ bearer. That's what Christopher, I know that because when my son, we were picking out a name, and my daughter, after saying Louis, she said Christopher. And I thought, and I looked it up, and it meant bearer of the Christ. And I love that. So, Jesus' message, "Know ye not, ye are gods." That doesn't sound like a man who was saying, "The only way to the Father is through me." But he did say that, did he not? Because I believe Jesus spoke from two realms. He spoke from that human realm, and he spoke from the divinity, which he knew was in him to express. And he said, "These things and greater shall ye do," in case there's any question that I see divinity in each one of you. Jesus said, in case there's any question, those who believe, these things and greater shall ye do. those who bring forth the cosmic Christ, as Reverend Chris referred to it in this recent newsletter, the Christ consciousness that pervades all of humanity. Paul said, Christ in you, your hope of glory. And bring that forth. That is our task, which we are given. And it seems like a daunting task at times, does it not? Like to forgive those who we feel we cannot forgive. The human self of us can't. But Jesus calls us to that Christ self, that indwelling spirit, the kingdom of God within. And so we come to this Christmas Day next week. And the thing I love about Christmas is it gets us closer to the joy that is inherent in Jesus' message than we get any other time of the year. We rise to that infinite realm of love, and we see it all over. You drive in the neighborhoods, and you are the light of the world. It's like everyone's saying that. Now, I don't put Christmas lights up anymore, but I love when I walk my neighborhood, because the light of the world is shining on so many of the houses. It's like we get the message at this time. That Jesus said, I am the light of the world, right? But he also said, you are the light of the world. And so we rise to that invitation, and we let our light shine. We don't hide it under a bushel. Also in the yards at Christmas time, I love the empty manger. Every year that manger gets empty. It's almost as if that message that Jesus gave us, that in your humanity you will find your divinity. Bloom where you're planted. It's what God has given us. But that manger becomes empty, just like all during the year. I know me. I become vengeful and angry and strifeful, as it said in the song. Even sometimes it feels hateful. The manger of my heart is empty. But every year I'm reminded that empty manger can be filled. That infant Christ consciousness, as the infant Christ child is born, it reminds us that the Christ consciousness, the cosmic Christ, can be born in us again. We always have a second chance. I mentioned a couple of weeks ago Sister Helen Prejean from Baton Rouge, who ministered to men on death row, that they have a second chance, that they accept their responsibility in their life, and that they ask for forgiveness. And Jesus taught us that it goes beyond this life into life eternal. We always have a second chance. So that Christ child every year is born into the manger after being nurtured by Mary, representing the love in us, which is balanced by Joseph. Joseph, the wisdom in us, in each of us. Because without love balancing wisdom, wisdom can be judgmental and harsh. And without wisdom balancing love, which can be boundless, that deep agape that we feel for each other and that is brought out during this Christmas season. But that boundless love on this earth plane does need to have some boundaries. Otherwise, we can get ourselves into trouble. So love balancing wisdom, balancing love. And the oneness that we feel as that Christ consciousness is birthed in us. That oneness, to see the Christmas lights that make our heart light up. And the oneness that we feel in hymns, right? As we join our voices in praise together. Christmas hymns. Do you like any songs more than Christmas hymns? That's the proof of everything I'm saying. Joy to the world. It is just so wonderful to join with you in these hymns. And, of course, Christmas story, relived again and again, that what happens in that empty manger of our hearts when we come together as one to honor the birth of the Christ child and the birth of the Christ consciousness in each one of us. The Christmas story, and joining our hearts and voices in song. So we invite you to do that now. Jude has orchestrated a lovely Christmas story that Reverend Chris, who I am privileged to share this platform with, will do that narration, and then we'll come in with songs of praise and joy for the birth of the Christ.